For months, silence surrounded Yaman. Fans kept asking, waiting, speculating, but he said nothing. Every photo he posted, every public appearance, every interview avoided one subject: the truth about what really happened between him and Demet Özdemir. People thought he had moved on, that the distance between them was final. But then came that one night, a television appearance that changed everything. When Can finally spoke, the world stopped to listen. He didn't come prepared with a script. There was no PR team guiding his answers. It was raw, unfiltered emotion. The interviewer asked casually, "If you could go back to one moment in your past, what would it be?" For a second, he froze. His eyes flickered, the kind of hesitation that says everything without words. Then he smiled sadly. "There was a moment," he said quietly, "that I wish I could live again. Because that moment changed everything." The host leaned forward. "Are you talking about your career?" Ken shook his head. "No," he said softly. "I'm talking about someone who was once the reason I smiled every day." The audience gasped. He wasn't just answering, he was confessing. "I made mistakes," he continued, his voice trembling slightly. "I thought silence would protect me, that hiding my feelings was strength. But all it did was make me lose the one person who truly saw me." Those words spread like wildfire. Within minutes, hashtags trended worldwide, hashtag Can Yaman speaks, hashtag the truth about Demet, hashtag world in shock. Clips of his trembling voice filled every feed. Fans couldn't believe it. For years, they had seen hints, shared glances, emotional interviews, half-finished sentences. But never before had Can spoken so directly, so openly. This wasn't just an actor reminiscing. It was a man finally releasing years of regret. Behind the scenes, people close to him said he had been struggling for weeks before that night. He knew he couldn't keep pretending, one insider shared. He's been quieter, more reflective. He'd watch their old scenes together on set, sometimes for hours. He even kept the same perfume she once gifted him. He wasn't ready to let go. After the interview aired, calls poured in from producers, friends, even journalists. Some congratulated him for being brave. Others warned that he might regret speaking so openly. But Can didn't care. That night, he turned off his phone and sat alone in his apartment in Rome, staring at the city lights. "At least," he whispered to himself, "I finally said what I should have said years ago." Meanwhile, miles away in Istanbul, Demet's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends sent her the clip, each message the same: "You need to see this." She hesitated at first, afraid of what she might feel. But when she finally pressed play, her world stopped too. She watched his face, heard his voice, and in that moment, the distance between Rome and Istanbul disappeared. His pain was real, and she felt every word. For the first time in years, the silence between them broke, not with a phone call, not with a text, but with truth. The morning after the interview felt different. Across Italy and Turkey, television shows replayed the same clip again and again: Can's trembling voice, his eyes that seemed on the verge of tears. Headlines exploded overnight: Can Yaman's confession breaks the internet, he finally talks about Demet, world stunned by Can's emotional words. Every social media platform was flooded with reactions, edits, fan theories, and old photos of the two of them smiling together. Some fans were crying, some were furious, and others just whispered one thing: he still loves her. But while the world talked, Demet stayed silent. She didn't post anything. She didn't comment. She didn't even appear in public. The only thing she did was share one old song on her story, a soft, nostalgic tune that once played in the background during a scene she had filmed with Can years ago. It was subtle, almost hidden, but for those who knew, it was unmistakable. She was remembering. Behind closed doors, she couldn't escape the flood of emotions. Sitting alone in her apartment, she rewatched the clip again and again, noticing things most people missed: the slight quiver in his hands, the way his voice broke when he said, "Someone who truly saw me." That wasn't a performance. That was the truth she had always known but never expected to hear again. Her closest friend called her that morning. "You saw it, right?" Demet nodded silently. "Then tell me," her friend continued, "how do you feel?" But Demet didn't answer. She just stared out the window, eyes filled with a strange mixture of pain and relief. "I thought I was over it," she finally whispered. But hearing him say those words, it's like every wall I built just cracked. At the same time, Cannes' team was in chaos. His manager begged him to release a follow-up statement to calm the media storm. "We need to control the narrative," he said urgently. But Kim refused. "I didn't speak for headlines," he replied. "I spoke for her." In the days that followed, paparazzi chased every move they made. They followed Kim through the streets of Rome, asking if he had heard from Demet. They camped outside her house in Istanbul, shouting her name. Still, neither of them spoke. But that silence wasn't emptiness anymore, it was anticipation. Fans noticed that both of them had started liking similar posts again. A photo of the sea, a quote about forgiveness, a simple heart emoji under an old fan page picture. Tiny signals that hinted at something, a reconnection that no one could prove, yet everyone felt. In Rome, Ken spent his nights alone, thinking about the past, the laughter between scenes, the long conversations about dreams, the way she used to look at him before the cameras rolled. He remembered how one small misunderstanding had grown into distance, and how pride had built a wall neither of them dared to climb. "I let her go," he whispered to himself, "because I was afraid. Afraid of being vulnerable. Afraid of what people would say. But the truth is, I've never stopped missing her." He opened his old photo album, one that had remained untouched for years. There she was, Demet, smiling, eyes bright, life radiating from her face. He ran his fingers across the image as if he could feel her warmth through the paper. At that exact moment, Demet was looking at the same photo on her phone. Two people, miles apart, connected by the same memory. Neither of them knew it, but both were reliving the same heartbeat. The world was waiting for a new chapter. And so were they. Days passed, but the storm refused to calm. Every news outlet continued to feed on Cannes' confession, and fans from all over the world turned their emotional reunion into a movement of hope. Edits of their old scenes were everywhere, soft music, slow fades, captions like "Some love stories never end." But while the world romanticized the past, Cannes and Demet were both silently fighting their own private battles. Cannes tried to bury himself in work. New projects, scripts, meetings, anything to distract his heart from the noise. But every time someone mentioned her name, his focus shattered. He could still hear her laughter echoing somewhere deep inside. Late at night, he found himself staring at the same message thread they once shared. He hadn't opened it in years. It was filled with memories, voice notes, playful emojis, little inside jokes only they understood. And then, the last message she had ever sent him: "Take care of yourself, Can. Please." That was the night everything fell apart. He closed his eyes and whispered, "I never stopped." Meanwhile, in Istanbul, Demet was facing her own whirlwind. People around her kept asking for a reaction, a statement, anything. Her team advised silence. "It's better not to add fuel," they said. But the truth was, it wasn't about public image anymore. It was about her heart. That night, she sat in her living room, rewatching a behind-the-scenes clip from their early filming days. In the video, Ken teased her about forgetting her lines, and she playfully pushed him away, laughing. At the end of the clip, he looked straight into the camera and said, "She's special, you know?" She smiled through tears. "You still think so?" she whispered. The next morning, fate decided to play its hand. Demet received a call from her agency, a new international project offer, a drama to be filmed in Italy. The moment she heard the location, she froze. Rome. For a second, she couldn't breathe. The same city where he now lived, the same skyline he had looked at when he spoke her name. Her manager continued, unaware of the storm inside her. "They want you to meet the director next week. It's a huge opportunity, Demet. This could redefine your career." She gave a small nod, trying to sound calm. Of course, she said softly. But inside, she was trembling. Was it coincidence, or destiny? When Cannes' manager brought him the same script a few days later, his reaction was almost identical. "It's perfect for you," the man said enthusiastically. "And guess who's being considered for the female lead?" Cannes' heart skipped a beat even before the name left his lips. Demet Özdemir. For a long time, he didn't speak. His manager laughed. "Come on, it'll be great PR. Imagine the headlines," but Ken interrupted him sharply. "No," he said, voice low. "This isn't about PR." That night, he couldn't sleep. He sat by the window, the script open on his lap, but he didn't read a single word. All he could think was that maybe fate was giving them one more chance, not just to act together, but to finish the story they left incomplete. Demet, too, lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had the strength to face him again. Would seeing him reopen old wounds, or finally heal them? Two cities. Two restless hearts. One unfinished love story that destiny refused to bury. The day of the meeting arrived, the first time they would see each other in years. Rome was bathed in soft golden light, and the city felt strangely quiet, as if it knew something important was about to happen. Ken arrived early at the film studio, trying to hide the nervous energy that pulsed through him. He had faced countless cameras, interviews, and crowds in his life, but this was different. His heart wasn't racing because of the project. It was racing because of her. He stood by the window, pretending to review the script, but his eyes kept darting toward the door. Every sound made him flinch slightly: footsteps in the hallway, distant voices, the creak of the door handle. Then, finally, she appeared. Demet stepped in gracefully, wearing a simple white blouse and jeans, her hair loosely tied back. No makeup, no pretense, just her, the same way he remembered her from their early days on set. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The air between them was electric, heavy with everything that had been left unsaid. Their eyes met, and in that single glance, all the years apart melted away. It wasn't awkwardness. It was something deeper, rawer. Recognition. Pain. Love. "Hi," she said softly, her voice calm but her heart racing. "Hi," he replied, barely managing to breathe a word. The director entered the room, oblivious to the storm between them, and began discussing the project. But neither of them heard a thing. Every word felt distant, muted by the pounding of their hearts. When the director finally said, "We'll do a quick chemistry test, just a short scene," both of them froze. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. A chemistry test. As if that had ever been their problem. They stood in front of the camera, the same way they had years ago, but now it felt heavier, more real. The scene was simple: two lovers reuniting after years apart. The director gave them the cue, and something shifted instantly. Demet stepped closer, eyes glistening. "You left without saying goodbye," she said, her voice trembling. Cannes' response was part script, part truth. "Because I knew if I saw you again, I wouldn't be able to walk away." The room went silent. No one dared to interrupt. The energy between them was so intense that even the director forgot to call cut. When he finally did, his voice cracked slightly. "Perfect," he said. "That was perfect." Demet turned away quickly, blinking back tears. Ken took a slow breath, trying to steady himself. He wanted to speak, to say something real, but the words were stuck in his throat. As she moved toward the door, he finally whispered, "Demet." She stopped but didn't turn. "You know I meant everything I said," he continued softly. "Every single word." For a moment, she didn't respond. Then, without looking back, she said, "I know. That's what makes it harder." And she left. He stood there for a long time, motionless, staring at the spot where she had been. Around him, the crew moved on, laughing and talking as if nothing had happened. But for Cannes, the world had shifted again. Later that night, he received a message from an unknown number. His heart skipped when he saw it. One line, simple but powerful, "You always had a way of saying too much without words." He smiled faintly. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end. Filming began a week later, and the atmosphere on set was unlike anything anyone had felt before. Every scene between them carried an energy no camera could fully capture. Crew members whispered about it, saying it felt like they weren't acting at all, like something real was unfolding in front of them. And maybe it was. Day after day, Can and Demet shared moments that blurred the line between fiction and truth. A glance that lasted a second too long, a touch that lingered after the director called cut, an accidental smile that revealed more than they wanted to admit. It was as if every emotion they had buried for years was now finding its way back, disguised as performance. One evening, they filmed a scene that mirrored their real lives too closely, two lovers confronting the pain of separation. The script required her to say, "You were afraid to love me," and him to reply, "No, I was afraid to lose you." But when the cameras rolled, the emotions were too raw, too real. Her voice cracked mid-sentence, and tears streamed down her face. Ken reached for her hand instinctively, breaking character, his own eyes filling with tears. No one said a word. The director quietly lowered his headset. The scene had turned into something beyond cinema, a confession, a release, an apology. When the day ended, everyone left the set silently, giving them space. The studio lights dimmed, leaving only the two of them standing under a soft glow. Demet wiped her tears and whispered, "I wasn't supposed to cry." Ken smiled faintly. "Then why did you?" "Because for a second, I forgot it was a scene," she said, her voice trembling. He took a slow step toward her. "Maybe it wasn't." She looked at him, eyes searching, full of questions and fear and hope. "Why now, Ken?" she asked. "Why say all of this now, after all this time?" He sighed, his voice low but steady. "Because for years, I thought silence was strength. I thought keeping my distance was protecting us. But all it did was make me lose you. I was wrong, Demet. I said those words on TV because I couldn't live with that silence anymore." She looked down, tears falling freely now. "You broke my heart, you know that?" He nodded, stepping closer. "And I've been paying for it ever since." For a long moment, there was nothing but quiet. The kind of silence that feels sacred, not empty, but full of everything unsaid. Then he whispered, "I never stopped loving you." Demet closed her eyes, as if those words were both a wound and a cure. Slowly, she reached out and touched his hand. "Maybe," she said softly, "we both needed to lose each other to understand what we had." He looked into her eyes, and something inside him finally settled. No more questions, no more pretending. Just truth. They stood there, holding hands, the lights around them fading as the sound of the rain began to echo softly on the roof. The world outside would soon know, the rumors, the headlines, the chaos. But at that moment, none of it mattered. The next morning, a single photo spread across social media, taken by a crew member who had quietly stayed behind. It showed Can and Demet sitting together after filming, her head resting gently on his shoulder, both of them smiling, eyes closed. The caption read simply, "Some stories find their ending when you stop running from the truth." Fans all over the world went wild. They're back together. This is real love. Destiny always wins. But for them, it wasn't about the world anymore. It was about peace, the kind that comes when two souls finally stop fighting what was always meant to be. Later that night, as they walked along the empty Roman streets after dinner, Ken looked at her and whispered the words that had started it all, "Demet, you're the missing piece of my soul." She smiled through tears and replied, "Then don't lose it again." He nodded, his voice steady this time. "Never again." The camera flash from a distant fan captured that moment, a man and a woman who had once lost everything, now walking hand in hand under the soft glow of the city lights. And for once, the world didn't see actors or a scandal. It saw love, raw, real, and reborn. The end.